Welcome to Digging into Scripture.
We're Ron and Amanda.
Join us for today's lectionary reading. Hey y'all. Today is the first Sunday of Advent in Year B of the Revised Common Lectionary. We'll be reading from Mark chapter 13, verses 24 through 37. But in those days, after that suffering, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be falling from heaven, and the powers in the heavens will be shaking. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heaven. From the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. From the fig tree learn its lesson. As soon as its branches become tender and put forth its leaves, you know that the summer is near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that he is near at the very gates. Truly I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. But about that day or hour, no one knows, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Beware, keep alert, for you do not know when the time will come. It is like a man going on a journey, when he leaves home and puts his slaves in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to be on watch. Therefore, keep awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening, or at midnight, or at cockcrow, or at dawn, or else he may find you asleep when he comes suddenly. And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake.
Okay, so this is Jesus talking, I guess?
Yeah, so this is after they have left the temple. They're having a discussion on the road. Actually follows up where he talks about false messiahs and false prophets appearing. So
Okay.
he seems to be sort of giving them some parameters of what that's going to look like.
Okay, and so he's quoting something we see, right? There's like a poem in there, which generally means,
Yeah, so
at least verse 24. Do we have a thing down there that tells us where to go? No, not in this one.
not in this one.
So maybe that's what I will do,
Okay.
is I'll figure out where, I'll figure out where that quote's
Alright,
coming
so
from.
let's come back to that at the end. We say, all right, so
Right.
So
But then, in the meantime, so Jesus is talking to the disciples.
yes.
And he mentions the fig tree. Does this have something to do with when the fig tree is not producing? And Jesus is like, well, you'll be dead tomorrow.
I don't know because he does that in a couple of the Gospels. What I think he's saying is that he talks about in some places about the fig tree, and that when you see it bloom, you know that summer is near. And
So it's just a sign,
right,
that something is changing.
Right. So you know when the trees start to bud. That spring is here, summer is coming.
Right.
When leaves start to turn.
Okay.
So yeah, he's saying
So
that
this is all saying like, well, keep awake, like be ready or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is all like, I want to say warning, but maybe not warning.
But yeah, it's I think it's to tell them to be ready. Because I think that's constant. I mean, that's what he's saying here. Therefore keep awake. You do not know when the master of the house will come, and when he's going to come. So you don't know when this is going to happen. So you need to be ready. It's not something where it's like, all right, we know we got 5 years, and
Right.
we can wait until the last minute.
So what is he telling them? This is Jesus talking to the disciples.
Yeah.
So why do they need to be ready? And he's talking about, then they will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. Mm. So he's talking about like the end.
Well, the Son of Man thing is referring to, and as some things I listened to talk, is a hyperlink to Daniel. So
Okay,
Daniel
right.
talks about the Son of Man, and so that was Son of God. While controversial, is not near as controversial as Son of Man, because
Right.
if you read the second half of Daniel, where it really talks about what that Son of Man figure, that's really talking about his place in the cosmos, because it's the Son of Man seated at the right hand of God. So it was really
Right. So I guess in my brain, I thought that Son of Man, of course, was in Daniel, and then John talks about it in Revelation, where he references Daniel all the time. But if you would have asked me where else it said Son of Man, I mean, I guess I would have thought that Jesus says Son of Man occasionally, but I thought he was always referring to himself. And I probably would have only thought it was in Daniel and Revelation. So
yeah, I believe Mark is the gospel where he uses that title the most, the idea of the Son of Man. And so where this comes in, and this is right before the Last Supper and going into the Passion.
right. So we're at the end, kind of his ministry.
And so the reason I think that this is, as we relate it to the lectionary, we're beginning the season of Advent, which is a season of preparation and that's a word I would use earlier.
Not waiting.
Well, okay, which is a season of preparation and anticipation.
Yes. Okay.
And so I think that for this lectionary year, that's they're using that to put you into that anticipation mode of see what's coming next, because that's what this is all about.
Because this is about keep awake and be ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are you going to go research?
I think I will dig a little bit more into that Son of Man thing, where that fits into. I mean, I have a pretty good basis on it, but specifically Mark's usage of Mark's Jesus's use of the Son of Man.
Okay, why Jesus, quoted by Mark, is using Son of Man.
Right,
Is that what you mean by Mark's Jesus?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because for each gospel writer, they are writing to a particular audience.
Right, for a particular reason.
Right, and so they will take what Jesus did and use it to tell the story they want to tell.
Right.
And so that's why Mark's Jesus, because he sounds a little different than John's Jesus.
Right. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to go figure out where that quote comes from in 24 and 25. I mean, it looks like quotes do in the Bible.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to go check out, and then we'll come back and see what we got.
All right.
Okay.
So what did you discover?
Well, first of all, I have notes that I need to look at. So, I wanted to find out about the quote that Mark uses in verses 24 and 25. Mm-hmm. So, they are from Isaiah and Joel. And in Isaiah, he's talking about the vision that he saw about the judgment of Babylon when he says these verses. Ugh. This dog. What's wrong, man? Okay. And when Isaiah is sharing the vision he saw about the judgment of the nations, he again says that the stars will fall from the sky, and that's what Jesus says in the Mark quote.
Okay.
And then Joel says the same thing about stars falling from the sky. My problem is, all this kind of tells me is that Jesus knew Scripture. Like, I don't really know, I mean, Jesus is referencing the fall of the stars and the fall of Babylon, quote unquote, whatever Babylon stands for, in Isaiah. But as far as
well, but yours leads right into what I was researching, which I think will help clear some of that up.
Okay.
First of all, I find it interesting that Mark sort of merges Joel and Isaiah. To get his point across.
Well, and that's one more thing. I was wondering if Isaiah knew about Joel, or Joel maybe knew about Isaiah, or whatever.
Right.
And Isaiah, they kind of have a pretty good timeline about when he was written. They have zero idea about Joel. No. So there wasn't a way for me to tell, was that quote originally from one or the other. But I tried to look that up as well.
So, Son of Man. I think we talked about it before we went to do our research. It relates back to Daniel.
Right. We talked about them saying it in Daniel.
Right. So this is kind of what Jesus is doing. Is he is everything in all the Gospels is making a statement. It's not just a neat story. It's not just a, hey, we're going to tell you this thing. I mean, they're there for a purposeful reason. And Jesus is doing things purposefully. If you look in the Gospels, the most common way to talk about Jesus is the Christ. But interestingly, he doesn't do that. And especially in Mark, he uses Son of Man. So in Daniel, we get that vision of the Son of Man. So you have to draft that back, though. Daniel has been taken by Babylon into the land. And Babylon is sort of the outgrowing of humanity picking its own way.
Right.
And so if you go back and
the consequences
of that, if you read that full story in Daniel, at the end of the beasts and the kings and all that sort of stuff, there is another empty throne beside God. If we go back to the idea of Genesis, that humanity was created to rule in conjunction with God, but not in the way humanity grasps that itself.
Right.
What that empty throne is waiting on is the human one, the one who actually was able to do that. And so by Jesus saying they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory, he's laying claim to that.
Yeah.
So he's saying that you've been waiting on someone. Adam, Abraham, David, Solomon, all these people who didn't do it the way that God had intended for creation to be. You've been waiting for someone to be able to sit in that throne. That's me.
Right. Well, I mean, I know at one point when he reads Isaiah, he says, "This is fulfilled in front of you right now."
Which is why when he says that, it's not in this one, but there's another one, or it'll be during his trial. In one of the Gospels, he calls himself the Son of Man, and that's when the priests tear their robes. And, it would have been, people think, well, Son of Man, Son of God would mean more. In the context, no, it doesn't, because he's saying, I'm the one that Daniel was looking for in his vision, what God was trying to show Daniel. And so it was very, not just theologically, but to a degree politically charged, because his idea of what it meant to sit in that throne is far different than what the priests and the Pharisees and Sadducees were looking for. And he's kind of saying, I'm going to do it my way, which, by the way, is the way it was supposed to be done.
Okay, that sounds good. So, we learned a little bit today, and we did our first week's reading, right?
Right.
So, come back next week, actually, just in a couple of days, because we're trying to catch up.
Yeah.
We will do the second Sunday of Advent's reading, and that will be coming out in a couple of days, so make sure you're looking for it.
Thanks for joining us, guys. Make sure to comment, subscribe.
Bye.